Hey guys, how's it going? CoderMan here. In today's video, I want to talk about 6 years of ownership with the M3 and 80,000 miles later, what my thoughts are, and basically what I've done with the car since I've owned it. I've owned the M3 now for just coming up on 6 years, and I wanted to break down the things that I've done with it, the experiences I've had, and overall just how I've really enjoyed this car for the last 6 years. So let's break this video up into 4 pieces, and we'll start with events. Now, of course, the M3 is something that you often see on the track or see racing or things of that nature, and truth be told, I have done that a few times. I've taken to Thompson, I've taken it to Club Motorsports in New Hampshire. So in addition to the track days, I've done a few autocrosses, I think about like 5 or 6. One, I actually almost crashed the car, and while I didn't actually crash into anything, there's just, if you've ever been to autocross or know anything about it, there's this electronic setup that's called timing, which is how they actually determine how fast your laps are. Well, I was coming into the beginning, where you'll start finish, and on that lap, I ended up turning off traction control to see what the car was capable of, and unfortunately got a little hot in one of the corners, and my car was pointing at timing. Fortunately, had good brakes, was able to stop. And luckily it wasn't my first time there, because I'm pretty sure I would have been made fun of pretty heavily. I still was by some of the instructors. It was all good fun. Unfortunately I didn't have to buy the timing equipment for the autocross group. So another thing I did a lot of with this car is go on car rallies. And these aren't really sanctioned events, although some of them were, and some of them were charity based. But oftentimes it's just a weekend where 10, 20 people get together. They drive down to, say, Newport, grab some lunch, hang out, friends, see the cars. Maybe it's a really nice day, maybe it's a rainy day, and it's really, the cars are kind of secondary. And in fact, I've never really had a car that was at the same level as a lot of the others. There's a whole bunch of Lamborghinis, Ferraris, McLarens, Bentleys, all sorts of things, and then here I come with my M3. And what's great is I've met a lot of people that they really just don't care what you drive. They want you to have something they can obviously keep up and you're safe, but you get to have a lot of fun with some really cool people. And as a result, I've actually made a whole bunch of business contacts as well as lifelong friends from just, hanging out around cars and being around car people. So in addition to the weekend cruises, those are just, your day cruises. I've also done a few overnights. I went to Canada, I've gone to Washington, D.C., went up to New Hampshire for the Mission 22 rally. We're doing the Mission 22 rally again this year. We're doing a reveal party for last year's video at Factory 5. So I'll go ahead and put a link in the description if you want to check that out. You're local, you want to sign up. So that wraps up events. I say break it up into track, autocross, day trip, weekend runs, and then of course long-term overnights, maybe multi-state or things of that nature. And it just all around was a great car for that. It continues to be a great car. Now you can kind of tell I'm speaking in past tense, and the reason for that is because I am looking for my next car, and I spoke about that in last week's video. I'll go ahead and put a card up if you haven't seen it yet. And I'm kind of toying with the idea of keeping the car or selling the car. I'm leaning more towards selling it only because it allows me more buying power. And for those who've seen my other videos, I only have a 1-car garage. It's kind of like a 3/4 car garage. And I don't want to have a car like that just sit outside and just not be used. I want someone else to really enjoy it. So I think I'm leaning more towards selling it, but I'll speak about that in a future video or maybe later on in this video, depending on when this comes out. Now, over the last 6 years, I've done quite a bit to the car. I've done, of course, some maintenance. You've seen that. I've also done a lot of mods. You've seen that as well. And I just kind of wanted to touch on a couple of things I did and why I did them. And if you're looking for an M3 or you currently have an M3, why you might want to look at these as options for yours. So first off, we have the exhaust. The stock exhaust is super, super quiet for a V8. That thing wants to sound good, but it's being restricted by all sorts of emissions. And of course, depending on your area, you may be limited in what you can do, but there's all sorts of exhausts in the aftermarket community. So at the very least, you want to do a resonator delete. And then you want to go further than that. You want to do a back section with, say, like a valved exhaust, like an IPE or a Valvetronic. Now, as you know, I have the IPE F1 exhaust on my car. I believe I put it on in 2015, so I bought the car in 2014, put it on in 2015, and it was right before an event that I was going to, and I haven't changed it since, other than the midsection so that I could pass Mass State inspection. So in addition to the exhaust, I've done some outer trim, like the angel eyes. I didn't like the yellow, so I made them the LED white. I did the paint match reflectors. I've done the side, basically the side gills, and it deleted all of the chrome. Because my model actually came with the shadow black, so why does it have pieces of chrome here and there? I wanted it to be all matching and no chrome, so that's what I did with that. So on the interior side of things, I kind of kept it simple. I basically did tint. It was already a black interior, so I actually just did legal 35%, and I've already been stopped a few times as a result because they think it's too dark. They run the tint meter on it and off I go. I've never actually gotten a ticket, just more of a nuisance. So maybe something to think of, maybe go lighter if you don't care, then stay where you are. So a funny one, and one thing I do on all my cars is I do an LED interior. And what I mean by that is all the little bulbs, they're generally yellow. It doesn't matter the car. I believe my wife's newest car actually came with LED from the factory. So I've always switched those out from going all the way back to a Jetta, my TSX, my wife's previous car, and then of course the M3. And then of course, rounding out mods, you wanna add all the horsepower you can. So go ahead and slap some decals on. Bonus if it actually promotes your own channel, but you know, promote your friend's brand or anything like that, it gives you between 5 and 10 horsepower, so make sure that you do that. Now, on the maintenance side of things, not too much I've had to do with this car, mostly just oil changes, diff fluid, brakes, pads, rotors, things like that, tires, of course. I think I've gone through 3 sets of tires, and then also 2 sets for the winter. You know, you drive the car, you're gonna need tires, you want tires, especially if you're going on the track or doing autocross or just spirited, you know, Mexico driving, you wanna make sure that you have good tires so you're not sliding around. So yeah, maintenance, I don't include the things that I've repaired, which I'm gonna get to in the next section, but for maintenance, it's just those things. It's, you know, basically just common upkeep you have on pretty much any car. Now repairs, this gets a little interesting because it depends on the mileage of your car, it depends on what's been done prior, and it also depends on what type of car you have. Now, of course, I'm basing this on the BMW M3. It has a few, let's say weak points or potentially weak points, and you wanna go ahead and you make sure and get those taken care of, especially as the miles start to increase. You just want peace of mind. So last spring, I actually did the rod bearings, and as a result, you know, that wasn't a cheap install, and I didn't do the install. I mean, you've seen me do DIYs, and you notice there was no DIY for that. I've seen a cursory view of how that goes, and that was something I didn't even want to even try to do. At the end of the day, it was something that it was costly, but now when I drive the car, I have no worries. That may be a false sense of security, something else could go wrong, but you know, 85,000 miles now, and I had them done at, I believe, 81,000, so 4,000 worry-free miles. I've driven all over, driven the car hard, just daily driven it, and I've had no problems. So another thing that broke, which was actually kind of interesting, I was coming back from a weekend with my wife, got on the highway out of Mohegan Sun, and all of a sudden the car went into limp mode, which for those who don't know, basically cuts down half of the power for the engine. And it also severely reduces how fast you can get going when you're getting onto a highway. So you can imagine when you're in 5th gear and your car drops to half speed, the engine will obviously cut the RPM so you can't over rev, but the car is gonna essentially crawl. You have to downshift to like 2nd, try to catch it, and then even then, you're only gonna get about 42 to 4,300 RPMs before you have to shift again. Now, as you know, the M3 is a high revving car, so you can see how this is kind of a battle. So, you know, fast forward to when we pulled over, I stopped the car, restarted it, it worked fine. I was like, okay, that's a really weird fluke. I don't have the scanner with me. When I get home, I'll run it and everything will be good. So I got home, I ran the scanner, and it told me that there was the throttle actuator in bank 2. So I had heard about this from a couple of the YouTubers' videos, as well as like in the forums and such, but I didn't know exactly what it meant. So I kind of did some more research and found that it's actually a part that is, you know, the throttle actuator is inside of the engine bay, of course, but it's not really hard to get to. So you just pretty much have to take the plenum off, the little plastics, and, you know, be careful with wiring and stuff. But in terms of like a DIY, it's not really hard. And I actually ended up doing, I will say, like a pseudo DIY video. It doesn't walk you through everything because I do say that if you're not comfortable ripping your car apart, don't do it. But you go ahead and check that video up, and I'll of course put up a link in the card. You can go check that out as well. So for me, what I ended up doing is I actually did both throttle actuators. I got them from FCP Euro. They're the same exact product. They just don't have a BMW logo on it. This has been reviewed extensively. There is another option where you can actually do kind of a rebuild kit, but I didn't want to go that route, so I just decided to get the ones directly from FCP, put them in, and everything was good. So the interior, how does that fall into repairs? So there's the switches on the center console next to the shifter that actually have for you. You can shut off DSC, you can mess with the suspension, and then I think there's a power button as well if memory serves. That's also tied into the M button on the steering wheel. And what ends up happening is the more those are pushed, which of course you're pushing DSC off, right? that ends up breaking and the switch still fully operates, but the button will fall off and it just looks hokey. So it's like $180. I bought that from FCP as well. Put it in, super simple, not a problem. Made a video on that as well if you want to check it out. And that was just an interior trim piece that I didn't like the look of, a rather nice interior having some janky buttons that are falling apart. So BMW can build engines, they can build cars, they can build really awesome motorsports, for like track days as well as, professional motorsports. One thing they cannot engineer, or rather two things, is cup holders and vents for air conditioning and heating systems. I don't know why this is, but any BMW that I've been in, as well as mine, the little thumb tab that you use to actually like move it back and forth for the, where you want to point the air, always breaks off. So when I first bought the car, it was missing two of them. It was under warranty, so I brought it to BMW, had them repair it. It was like, I think like $500 or $600 a warranty item. I couldn't believe it. Then as time went on, they started to get loose, the same exact ones, and sure enough, one of them broke off on the driver's side to the closest to the window. Fortunately, you don't move that one a lot. You can kind of get your pinky in there and, jigger it to where you want it. The problem is that it kind of looks janky again because it's missing the little tab. Now out of warranty, I'm not paying $500 to fix something so simple. I just can't believe that they can't actually create something that won't fall apart so easily. And the last thing repairs was late last year, I was actually doing the battery install, and when I put the car back together and started it up, I had no interior lights. So all the radio and the dash and blinkers and actually hazards too, which was neat, didn't work. So in addition to that, what ended up happening was I found it was the FRM module. Fortunately, it was under warranty, but I had to get the car to BMW, so I ended up driving it there with no brake lights, no hazards, no blinkers, and I couldn't put the windows down, so I couldn't even like point by and tell people, I'm slowing down or go around me. I pretty much just had to look like the ass driving a BMW with no blinkers, and I'm guessing I fit the BMW mold perfectly. I had people honking at me. It wasn't the greatest time, but I got it to the dealer, they fixed it, and like I said before, it was under warranty, but I think it was like a $500 or $600 part. So you want to check your VIN. If that happens, you may still be under warranty. It depends on what year your car was built. So as you can see from this video, there hasn't been a lot of maintenance items. There hasn't been a lot of repairs. Actually, a lot of the cost in this car has just been in the rod bearings, the exhaust, which of course falls under a mod, and then I would say probably gas. I think I probably spent between $8,000 and $9,000 in gas over the last 6 years. And I don't drive this car as a daily. Like it was my daily for a short period of time, but I work remotely, so I don't actually have to drive anywhere every day for long distances. So actually that much gas for that relative little time, it's kind of expensive to operate, but it's a hell of a lot of fun. 6 years later, every time I start it up, the engine roars, the downshifts, everything about it is just awesome. You turn into a corner, you just feel the car planted. So with all this said, why would I think of selling it? I'm just kind of tired of it. Not saying it's a bad car, I've just had it too long, and I'm kind of at the point now where I would throw a supercharger on it and risk all of the reliability. I would do kind of more accent pieces like wheels and maybe a wing and things like that, but I really don't want to go down that road. I like the way that it looks, I like the way that it drives, and I just want someone else to enjoy it. So, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, and actually in talking about this, I've still been deciding like what I'm going to do. And if you've made it this far, I'll tell you that I am selling the car, and it probably will be sold this week or possibly next week. But I have a deposit down on another car that I actually fly out in the next couple of weeks to pick up and drive home. So I'm not saying anything else about that. If you're close to me and you know what it is, please do not comment on what it is. I want it to be kind of a little bit of a surprise because I'm super excited for it. And we're just gonna kind of go along on the journey, and I'll bring you guys along for it. Hopefully it's exciting. I know the driving portion will be, but the travel to there probably not as much. So that's all I have for this video. That's my thoughts on 6 years of ownership with the M3. Like I said, it's just under 85,000 miles. I got it with about 26,000 miles. So I've put a good amount of miles on it for just an air quotes toy car. I've loved every minute of it. I continue to love it if I drive it in the winter or the summer. And I'm super excited for who gets it next to see what they do with it. Hopefully they take great care of it as well. I don't see it on Copart or things of that nature. That would really suck. Once I give those keys and that title, it's out of my hands and I have to move on. So in next week's video, I'm actually going to be doing something that I've wanted to do for a while in the M3, and it's actually a total cost of ownership breakdown over the last 6 years. And I'm going to go into some of the maintenance and repairs that I spoke of in this video, but in more detail in regards to the cost, as well as gas and taxes, and really the whole entire ownership cost minus the loan portion, because I don't really think that's relevant because everyone's gonna have different factors there. But it is a pretty high number for how much it's cost to have this car for the last 6 years, but I think it's all relative, so I hope you'll check out that video next week. We're actually really close to 2,000 subscribers and I'm super excited about it. I'm going to be doing a giveaway for 2,000 just like I did for 1,000. Not 100% sure what the item is gonna be yet, but it is gonna be really cool. So I hope you subscribe if you aren't already. Leave a comment on this video if you have any questions about the M3. Like it, hit that notification bell, and I'll see you in the next video.